Good evening, and thank you all for being here tonight. My name is Redwan Belu, and I'm one of those people for whom Rachel gave her life. I was reading some Arabic poetry this morning online, and it's just really motivating. I don't know, our hearts go for Rachel, our hearts go for her parents, our hearts go for Joe, who witnessed her, and we thank you very much for keeping the torch. I just want to tell something very simple that I tell to my American friends. By the way, I've been in this country for like a little bit over 20 years. I was born and grew up in Gaza, where Rachel gave her life. I just tell my American friends, just want them to imagine the attitude of the Israelis if they can kill a pretty American, unarmed, peaceful lady in front of TV cameras in daylight. Can anybody imagine what would they do for a Palestinian who has a gun or piece of stone or an empty Coke bottle behind the scenes? I just want people to think how have the Israelis been dealing with people for the last, well, I don't want to say 42 years, but more than 6 decades actually, since before Israel was born. And just want to let everybody know that Israel didn't give her life for little. Freedom doesn't know countries, freedom doesn't have boundaries, freedom doesn't have religions, freedom is not limited or bounded by anything other than what's inside your heart. Again, we all love Rachel. The poetry today, it was really amazing. I was really crying like a baby. It says, Rachel is in the heart not only of every Palestinian, Rachel is in the heart of every peace-loving Israeli. Rachel was in the heart of every loving peace human being on the face of the earth. We love you, Rachel. Our hearts go for you. We love your parents. We love you, Joe. Thank you very much for taking care of this, and thank you for coming.
This anniversary is always a difficult one, both because of the really messy political and personal combinations, it being right around spring break and so close to the invasion of the war in Iraq and everything happening, that it's always difficult to know how to mark this day for me. I struggle with it every year. Struggled a lot with whether I should do this event, and I'm glad I did. I'm glad you're here. I want to open with a poem I wrote last year at the 6-year anniversary. And that would have been just a couple months after the brutal invasion of Gaza, and literally a week after another international activist had gotten shot in the head with a tear gas canister, who still suffers very serious injuries after that. So his name was Tristan. So this poem is called Poem for Rachel 6 years later. We'll call it Poem for Rachel 7 years later. 7 years it's been and the world's still spinning. Revolution still coming, but we're no closer to winning. Bombs still falling, bulldozers still roaring. Gaza still screaming and the blood still pouring. Rafah, oh Rafah, what's left of Rafah? Still aching, still bullet-riddled and rubble piled, still scratching at prison walls with nails still filed. The house you died defending was crushed with rebar bending, the struggle seeming never ending, and the wall you died resisting still stands strong, persisting, but now with massive holes through which some sun is glistening. Holes blown open by men who shared their tea around the campfire. Holes of a people fighting genocide. Like pinholes poked in a plastic bag wrapped around their heads as they gasp for a few more breaths. Americans still cross enemy lines to stand with their brothers and sisters, not behind or in front, but beside. and then return to burst bubbles of ignorance like me, war-torn and traumatized, or worse. As the boot of war and occupation stomps down on the world, so many of us ride in the cracks on the bottom. But others, like you and Tom, get smashed, like Brian, blasted in the head just 2 weeks before with weapons meant for others that he paid for, like Tristan smashed in the head just last Friday. We'll have to start calling this Shaheed Remembrance Day. How many people have visited the site of your death, memorialized with flowers, desecrated by tank treads, decorated by children's tears and laughter? But I know you aren't interested in the updates you can read from the electronic intifada. You would ask me, how do I feel? Well, sometimes I feel lost. It's been 7 years and things have only gotten worse. 7 years and we wander in this desert of injustice, how we thirst. Sometimes I feel hopeless. 2 years went by and nobody mentioned Palestine until Gaza was burning and over 1,000 had died. Now 2 months later and there are no more constant updates from the Middle East, no more vigils and protests and people in the streets. The same 8 people are back to tirelessly advocating. The same few websites endlessly commentating. Now so many times I mention Palestine and someone says your name, not knowing my connection. And I have to tell the story all over again. So many remember you but forget the thousands of Palestinians. They remember you but have never heard of Tom or James or Nabila or Ali. Sometimes I feel bitter that you left us to deal with all this on our own, without your smile and creativity that made us feel so at home. And as this weekend marks the 7-year anniversary of another major tragedy, I feel like maybe we've wasted all this time. Like, what do I have to show Palestinians from the last 7 years? From the roller coaster of trial and failure, barrels of sweat and tears. In this time, so many have such great hope for change. It's kind of strange, given how so many problems remain, but it's springtime, time of renewal, time to count our jewels, time to plant seeds and give them fuel. So may your body, now decomposed, be compost to fertilize the struggle that grows and grows. I look into your mother's eyes and I see your spirit persevering, and it gives me strength to keep on steering, though I know the end is not nearing. I bet that you're peering down and see us gathered here. Or maybe you're among us. If we look, you might appear. The sheer knowledge of your existence has inspired oh so many that we will remember you at 7 years, at 10, 15, and 20, and all the others we celebrate on this Shaheed Remembrance Day. Your example shines so bright, we'll use it to light our way. As I've traveled this land, speaking of your last stand, still clutching your hand, extending out of the sand. I accept that I cannot pull you out, but we might keep the rest of us from being pulled under. So Rachel, we both went to the Evergreen State College in Olympia, Washington, and met there through an event called Procession of the Species, which is an annual march where people dress or build plants and animals to celebrate the earth. And in 2002, she decided to get people to dress as doves as symbolic protests against the war in Afghanistan at that time. And she recruited me because she found that I had experience making backpack puppets and other large structures. So she organized these workshops and got over 40 people to march in that parade as doves, including a 12-foot backpack frame dove and a dove on a bicycle. And it was just really indicative of her style of organizing. Very creative, a lot of initiative, really good working with people. And we started our friendship and working relationship through that. We both learned about the International Solidarity Movement, which is a Palestinian-led, non-hierarchical, non-violent organization that organizes non-violent direct action resistance to the Israeli occupation and colonization of Palestine. And it's a fundamentally an anarchist organization. It has no central leadership. The leaders are representatives of the various communities that are organizing nonviolent direct action, and internationals and Israelis play a support role. We have a say in the decision making, but generally we don't do anything that isn't Palestinian-led. It's explicitly Palestinian-led organization, and as internationals, Israelis participate and support their work. It's ongoing today. You can check them out at palsolidarity.org. Anybody can go over and participate, and there's other organizations like it. So I went over in January, early January of 2003 for the first time. I was 21 years old, planning to stay for a month. Went to the training I was in Bethlehem at that time, and they said they really needed people to go to Gaza, to this team that they had in Rafah, which is the southernmost city of the Gaza Strip. So this is Gaza. It's really tiny, and you can kind of see the Palestinians live even in small sections of that. It's completely surrounded, nobody in or out. All the borders are completely sealed by Israel, and since they withdrew the settlements a few years ago, it's completely closed, and now there's very difficulty getting food and medical supplies and other things in, and as well as refugees, people who had left for whatever reason can't get home, people who want to get out can't get out, and so forth. So we spend most of our time down in Rafah, which is a very southernmost city that borders on Egypt here. Rafah for you. So Rafah is a pretty compact city, about 150,000 people, and about 7 square miles. So really, really densely populated area. And Israel has been systematically destroying the homes along the border area to build this massive wall. They wanted to cut a strip the size of a football field, 100 meters or so, through this neighborhood in order to build this buffer zone. And here's a picture of what that wall looks like. And this wall was up long before the wall in the West Bank and all the attention about the apartheid wall and so forth. It goes 8 meters underground and 12 meters above ground, solid steel, corrugated steel, steel wall. And not all of the wall is that intense. That's kind of in the city proper, and then it becomes the concrete wall that you make some pictures.
Translate meters to feet.
Same. There's like 3 feet to a meter, about a yard. So 100 yards, like a football field size, and you see the kind of like the strip here that so all these homes have been destroyed since I took this picture in 2003. All of this has been destroyed. There's a good 150 meter or a yard buffer zone at this point. And to get the people to leave their homes, they would drive tanks up and down the border all day, and especially at night, opening fire into the homes. And we now have documentation of this. The new Rachel Corrie documentary that just came out, they interview a tank commander down here who says very explicitly that was their policy, that they would shoot into homes until they were reasonably sure nobody was in it, and then they'd come and destroy it. So a lot of people didn't abandon their homes, they just stopped using the front rooms. But you can see what the living rooms looked like, so you can see that this home, they stopped using this room because of all the shells and tanks, so they just could use these back rooms. Also, this is Abu Jamil, who I stayed with quite a bit, with his wife and 2 children. This is his kitchen, and you can see the bullet holes that come through the walls there that fortunately weren't when he was in it, but certainly could have been. And so when we stayed in the houses, we would put these signs on the outside that said what they said. You can read this here. It says, "Please don't shoot children and internationals living in this house." And it says it in Hebrew also. We made sure to make a few Hebrew mistakes so that they didn't think that we were Israelis in there, because that's illegal for Israelis to be there. So to give you another bit more of a feeling of Rafah, I want to read a poem that Rachel wrote about Rafah. My feeling is that it's unfinished, but I'll give you the version that was taken out of her journal. O Rafah, aching Rafah, aching of refugees, aching of tumbled houses, bicycles severed from tank-warped tires, and aching of bullet-riddled homes, worm-eaten by bullets and then impregnated through bullet holes by birds. O Rafah, aching fingers of Rafah, children born without fingers and fathers unable to travel the 20 or 30 miles to Gaza to repair their children's fingers. Clawed knuckles from old gunshot bandaged fingers and slimy small poking fingers between puffy lips of children, slobbery and wandering and blinking like all children. Fingers patting and tapping at strange big hands amidst the music of shelling and the constant anonymous night vision telescope of murder, above, behind, and around, and even inside. Fingers cracked, crust, spackle, concrete, fingers of endless rebuilding of things crushed. Home, home. O Rafah, aching homes of Rafah, home of Rafah camp, Rafah grown permanent with the names of the countries that paid for the neighborhood still attached, home of Rafah unleavable, Homes stickered with glow-in-the-dark stars in teenagers' rooms. Homes constructed over a lifetime and unraveled in a night. Ache of rubble and weedy rebar craning out of concrete boulders. Ache of ghost homes looming without volume, without mass, straddling this wall and this wasteland the wall demands. Ache of dinners. Knees hunched, kneeling dinners spread over floors, and the music of gunfire, and the irregular heartbeat of the border, and the living dead homes waiting immobile for bulldozers and tanks, and the shattering of tea glasses, and the bending of rebar, and the tumbling of concrete, and the ejection of people. Baby, grandmother, small girl, curling her entire small hand around one big finger, teenage boy with teenage boy laugh, ejected into rubble and homelessness and scattered if not killed. Oh, Rafah, aching Rafah, children of Rafah, exploded children of Rafah, deafened to tank wheels, deafened to explosions, gunshot music, shocking claps and drones. Thank you. And so a lot of Rachel's writings have been found. They've written a play called My Name is Rachel Corrie. I have the script here, people want to look at it afterwards, using her words that she wrote both as a child as well as her emails from Palestine. And then they recently released a compilation called Let Me Stand Alone that's of her journals from her whole life, her stories and poetry and all of her amazing insights on the world. Besides staying in the homes that were being shot at and trying to prevent them from being destroyed, we did a lot of work with the municipal workers in Rafah. This is a municipal bulldozer trying to repair electrical and water facilities. Israel would come and destroy Rafah's infrastructure to try to just make life unlivable, and then when the workers would come to try and repair it, they'd shoot at them. And so we would use our bodies, really our international privilege, the fact that we were white Westerners with access to media and embassies, to intervene and to physically block, to protect the workers. So this is Stefan, a Swedish international, using his body to protect this Palestinian worker from a guard tower that could have shot at him for doing this work. And we were able to repair quite a bit of infrastructure while we were there by using our presence to protect them. It's another picture of us kind of just making our presence known and trying to protect the workers. Another interesting action we did, this is Rachel here. There was a man, I called this Operation Antigone. There was a Palestinian man that Israelis had shot out in a field, and they were refusing to let the paramedics go collect his body. And in Islam, it's really important that you bury a body within 24 hours in order for their soul to be at rest. So the clock was ticking on trying to get this man's body so his family could bury him. And so they asked us to try and go get this, because the Israelis had said they'd shoot anybody that went out to try and get it. So we went out there with banners, a megaphone, and our white skin privilege, and had this standoff with the Israeli military. It took about 3 hours out in the sun, where they kept shooting like around us. If we'd walk towards the body, they'd shoot like in the path and so forth. And one person was actually injured from a piece of a bullet that shattered and hit her in the leg. But we were able to eventually get his body and return it to the family for them to bury it. So that was Operation Antigone, just an example of random things that we as internationals were able to do, but Palestinians weren't allowed to. We did a lot of demonstrating. These guard towers, like you see here, often shot randomly into neighborhoods, but also had snipers that would target people. And shortly after Rachel died, there was a little boy named Ali who was shot while playing soccer. They were playing a soccer game, and the sniper decided to take some pot shots at the kids and shot and killed this young boy, Ali. I think he was 8 years old. And so we did a demonstration, and we made this banner, and we marched out to the tower, out in this area where the tower was, and stood there and just tried to really shame the guard tower. And they shot at us around at our feet and tried to intimidate us and make us go away. But they definitely knew we were there. They definitely knew that what was going on. And that's Rachel there as well with that banner. And Rachel loved the children. She spent all kinds of time playing with the kids, playing soccer, and normally girls don't play soccer in Palestine, so she was like, I'm going to play soccer, so she would go out and play with them. They thought that was really fun. She was instrumental in working with a Palestinian children's organization to organize an anti-war demonstration on February 15th of '03, which was the day that the largest day of demonstrations worldwide against the war in Iraq. And so the Palestinian children organized it mainly, and then we made our signs of saying these different places that we were from. You see, this is Olympia, no war in Rafah in Iraq. And it was at that demonstration that we were invited to take part in Israeli and U.S. flag burning. And we didn't feel like it was appropriate for us to burn Israeli flags, but we for sure were ready to burn some U.S. flags. And so that's where this picture came from that has been used against her, you know, to try and portray her as violent, as if it's violent to burn a piece of paper painted like a flag, right? That represents the most violent country in the world. But I really like this picture. And so bulldozers, you know, we used our bodies quite frequently to interfere with bulldozers. It's not any kind of new tactic. It was used, you know, Tiananmen Square is probably the most famous picture of somebody using their body to block a piece of heavy machinery, but it's been used in the anti-gentrification movement. It's been used in native struggles throughout time. It's been used to place your body in between something that you're trying to protect. So we had a variety of ways of blocking these bulldozers. We would use our occupy structures like this, kind of stand up high and elevate it so they couldn't destroy it, like a house or even just a piece of a house in front of another house. Or we would just sit down in their path and block them. And you can see generally we could drive very close, even moving the earth that we're standing on. But we're always careful not to injure us, always up until this point. So these are our Caterpillar bulldozers. They're Caterpillar D9 and D10 bulldozers. All they do is modify it. Caterpillar Corporation modifies the bulldozers for the Israeli military, armoring the cabs. Let's see, I'll go back here. So you can kind of see how similar they are. Welcome. They armor the cabs and increase the engine a little bit so that it can carry the armor. But they turn them into a war machine. I mean, the Caterpillar Corporation knows that these are going to be used as military bulldozers and that they've killed lots of Palestinians and Rachel. So we've had an ongoing campaign against them that I'll talk about a little bit. But on March 16th, 2003, Rachel had joined me and Rafah at the end of January. And so we'd been together for about 9 weeks as coordinators of ISM working in Rafah. And on this day, we got a report that two bulldozers and a tank were working in an area, threatening all the homes in that area, particularly ones that we'd been staying in. And so we went out and began interfering with them. And normally when we'd show up and interfere a little bit, they would leave and just say it's not worth it anymore. This time they decided they were going to be really persistent. And we were out there for about 2.5 hours or so, blocking them over and over again. We'd block them one place, they'd go to another house. We'd block them there, we'd go to another. And they just kept going down the border. And started getting closer and closer to us, to the point of it being clear that it was that these were more aggressive than they had been in the past, but still stopping. We had fluorescent jackets, we had a megaphone, we had banners. These are all pictures I took of her blocking bulldozers earlier in that day. I don't have any pictures of the actual incident before it happened, but these are all pictures of her doing something very similar to what she did when she was actually killed. And so you can get an idea of what it looks like. So the home of Dr. Samir, Rachel had stayed there quite a bit. All the people in our team had been staying with them. He was kind of, this house, all the other homes around it had been destroyed, and he was holding out. He had put all of his life savings in this home. He was a physician, a pharmacist, 3 children and his wife, and his brother and his wife also lived there. And so when the bulldozers approached that home, Rachel was very adamant to block them in advance of it, to make sure that they didn't threaten that home. It's a picture, kind of a bad picture of their family, but you can kind of get an idea of who she spent her time with there. So Rachel took a position a good like 30 yards or so in front. And you see if you stand in front well in advance of the path of the bulldozer, there's no question they can see you, right? Because you're so far ahead. They were used to us doing this, that we would take a position well in advance so they knew exactly where we were, that they could, if they were to turn, we would move. But normally they had kind of a pattern that they did here, as you can kind of see with this grass. And so as it pushes forward, it pushes this large mound of earth, right? And so by this time, we're out of the view of the bulldozer driver because it's so tall. So what we would do is we'd either just stay there and they would stop because they know we were there, or sometimes we would climb onto this mound and actually elevate ourselves and show that we're still there. And sometimes if they pushed it a little bit, you could kind of ride it a little bit. It was almost like surfing a little bit, like you could. And they would always stop though when we popped up in front of there because they know that it's a very dangerous position for us to be in. And so this is a painting I did of what Rachel was doing at that time. She had climbed, as the bulldozer approached her, she climbed up on it, and was just reaching up over it and showing herself in the bulldozer driver. So there's no question that at this point he knew that she was there before because she was there in advance. When he got close to her, she was up on top of the mound. She could see her there, but he continued to drive forward. She was pulled into the mound, and he kept going forward, which pulled her underneath the bulldozer, and he kept going forward until she was well underneath the bulldozer, like maybe underneath the rear section of it. And so he had to know that she was under there because there's just nowhere else she could have been. She would have appeared on either side if she'd been able to get out of the way. And so then, but knowing that she's under there, he reverses, and without lifting the blade, you can see in this picture the blade's lifted, but he hadn't lifted it. And he drug it over her again. So she wasn't actually crushed by the treads of the bulldozer. This picture was taken just after. He backed off of her by another activist named Richard Purcell, who was right behind it at the time. So she's in between the treads. It was really this blade that did the significant damage to her, and particularly it being twice that it was drug over her again. So we, totally shocked and adrenaline rushing, just rushed to her. Alice, who testified yesterday in the trial, is this red-haired woman here, did first responder medical treatment on her, keeping her neck straight. She was still conscious. After it backed up, she said, my back is broken, is what she said, which were essentially her last words. And they tried to keep her awake, and we called paramedics to get paramedics there. And Palestinian paramedics were able to, they weren't allowed out in this area, so we had to physically protect the paramedics as they came out to even get Rachel so that they didn't get shot by the tank. The tank did kind of come over, and talk to us a little bit, tried to kind of holler about what happened, and we hollered back at what had happened, and they clearly just watched it so they knew what had happened, and we were really angry. And I took a bunch of pictures of the bulldozer that had crushed her in the cab a little bit. So the paramedics got her and rushed her to the hospital. There was a whole list of injuries that she sustained that they talked about, that they released afterwards, about 30 different documentable injuries that she'd sustained, and she was pronounced dead pretty much on arrival to the hospital. She was crushed at about 5:45, and they pronounced her dead at about 6:20. And it was really shocking. It was the first time I'd really dealt with death and with that kind of really severe violence, and it was really awful. We had a grieving ceremony. It's customary in Palestine the whole community grieves when somebody dies, not just of occupation death, but anybody who dies. And it's a 3-day process where they erect this big community tent, and the family sits in these chairs here, and community members all 3 days come and greet the family and drink tea and have food and grieve together. And so they did this. So we'd gone to many of these as the people who were killed or died as we were there. And so they erected one of these for us, and also made these Shaheed posters. As you can see here, Shaheed means martyr. And one of the ways they commemorate the people who give their lives in the struggle are to make them a Shaheed poster. So this was the first Shaheed poster made for an international or a Westerner or white Westerner at least. And these are 2 Palestinian men who are sharing some Turkish coffee over the fire. And so I wrote her a song pretty much the next day or so. I had a little travel guitar, and I was a big Simon and Garfunkel fan, and I really loved the song He Was My Brother, written about Andrew Goodman, a white civil rights activist who was killed in Mississippi in 1964 on the Freedom Rides. And so I changed it to She Was My Sister.
She
sister to her face. Go home, outsider. Rafah is gonna be your burying place. She was singing on her knees when a war machine came along. He crushed my sister dead because she hated what was wrong. She was my sister. Tears can't bring her back to me. She was my sister, and she died so her sisters could be free. She died so her sisters could be free. On the fourth day, we led a big march out to the spot where she was murdered, and this is this area Palestinians were never allowed to go. It was out in this border area that was off limits. And so we thought, okay, we'll put the internationals in the front, and the internationals can march out there, and the Palestinians can hold back to where it's safe, and we can go make the altar. As soon as we get there, Palestinians just take it over, just rush out into this area that they know full well that is dangerous. It's about 200 Palestinians that march out into this area and just take it over, and we start building this memorial with flowers and pictures of her. Pretty soon a tank sees what's going on and comes over, and they shoot in the air and try to intimidate people, and they shoot off tear gas, and they're shooting off this smoky stuff to try and shooting off sound grenades, just trying to break up the group. But people refuse to leave, and the Palestinians start surrounding the tank and refusing to even let it leave, and we started putting pictures and flowers all over the tank and like memorialize this tank. And so to see Palestinians even out in this area was amazing, but to see them like this close to a tank, physically touching it, placing pictures and flowers was amazing. And I just imagined the tank having to go back to the base and take off all these flowers and pictures of Rachel, and I thought that was a really powerful demonstration. There were also memorial services all over the world. This is pictures of one that was held in Olympia just afterwards. And every year on this day, people do different things across the world. So today there are actions and events all over the place. There was also demonstrations, direct actions done. About a week later, activists blockaded this major city street in New York in front of the UN building. I don't know if it's 5th Street or I don't know the streets in New York very well.
In front of the UN plaza.
In front of the UN is 5th Street. So they blocked their arms together in these PVC and metal tubes, and you can see her essentially reenacting her murder, basically demanding justice. And eventually they were all cleared and arrested and faced all pretty severe charges. They tried to throw the book at them, and I don't know exactly how it turned out, but those activists ended up getting a lot of penalties for doing this action. But it was really very much in the spirit of her putting themselves on the line. We've done actions like that, targeting Caterpillar specifically, both because of their relationship to Israel and as a war profiteer, but particularly because of their relationship to Rachel and the way that she was killed. And 2 weeks earlier, a pregnant woman named Nabila had been killed by a bulldozer as well. She was in her home when they were destroying it, and they pushed a wall on top of her and killed her and her unborn baby. And nobody hears about Nabila. But there's a lot of stories like that. Even the night Rachel was killed, about 2 hours later, a Palestinian living near the border went and sat outside to smoke a cigarette, and apparently the snipers were able to see the cigarette light and used that to target him and just shot him for no reason and killed him. And that was the same night as Rachel, and nobody hears anything about that. But so we target Caterpillar. This is a banner drop we did in Kansas City at the cat distributor there. At least they had to come out and take the banner down, which we thought was useful. And we've done a variety of actions at their headquarters in Peoria, Illinois. This is the first action we did there with all kinds of like puppets and this mock bulldozer that we had a good time destroying, as you can see here. The following year, on March 16th, me and a couple other activists actually blockaded the street in front of the Caterpillar headquarters, which is a pretty big street. We covered ourselves in fake blood and names of Palestinians who'd been killed and pictures of Rachel, and laid in the street and blocked it, and had to be drug away by the Peoria police, who subsequently dropped all the charges rather than have us come back to Peoria and do another action, which is what we planned to do if we had to go back for court. And so, but continuing that direct action in her legacy, and this goes on and on. Her parents, Cindy and Craig Corrie, have dedicated their lives to getting justice for their daughter and for the Palestinians. Really, both of them quit their jobs, retired early, and are living off of their retirement now, traveling the world, speaking about what their daughter did and what she stood for and the situation in Palestine, and have been tirelessly demanding justice through U.S. authorities. And they had a congressional resolution that was introduced by their Congressman Baird, who just calling for an independent investigation. That's all they want. They just want it to be independently investigated to find out what really happened, because there has been really no investigation. The State Department demanded that the Israelis investigate and that they make the findings of the investigation public. And they did an Israeli military investigation where the military investigated itself and found itself innocent, which it does all the time. It's well known that the Israeli military cannot and is not reliable source of investigations of their soldiers. And so the State Department, and then they made the finding public. They didn't make any other part of the process public, but they released their finding, that included our testimonies. They came and interviewed us about a month later. I'd say it was maybe 3.5 weeks later that they came and testified, came and interviewed us. Actually required us to go to a military base to give our testimonies. And so those of us that were still there testified in it and had our eyewitness accounts that all matched, put down in the paper. And then about a week after they took our testimonies, they released the findings. So they had already made their finding before they included ours. And their finding was that she was in a ditch where the bulldozer driver couldn't see her, and he accidentally pushed a boulder on top of her. And then we dug her out and moved her body and laid it in front of the bulldozer to take the picture of the bulldozer driving off her. That is their official finding. The bulldozer never touched her. It was not their fault, and that we acted in both negligently and in manipulating the public in terms of lying about the story. So it's totally ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. The State Department has acknowledged that that is not an adequate finding, that this has not met their demand for an independent investigation. Of course, they say that to us, but then they're not going to make any consequences to Israel to do it, as we're learning through this process. And so the Corries had demanded an independent investigation through Congress. They got about 64 Congress, House of Representatives to sign on to it. So a significant number of Congress members willing to sign on to this resolution that, of course, never saw the light of day, but was symbolic. Also spent a lot of time pressuring the State Department. And now they're involved in a civil trial in Israel. There's a process by which they can sue. In our country, it'd be suing for wrongful death. People remember the O.J. trial, how basically O.J. was found innocent in a criminal trial, but guilty in a civil trial. It's basically what the Corries are trying to do. Is that
who exactly are they suing?
They're suing the Israeli military, specifically the Israeli military, either for the intentional killing of their daughter or for the gross negligence on their part. If it was accidental, they at least acted negligently. And so they're suing for damages. Also, last week they added to their charges that the Israeli forensics examiner violated an Israeli court order, and the U.S. Embassy demands that they have an embassy person present for an autopsy. The Corries had said we really don't want an autopsy, we just want the body back. And they said, we really want to do an autopsy. And they said, okay, if you're going to do an autopsy, we want we want a U.S. embassy person present for that. And an Israeli court ruled that they must do that it must have a present, and they didn't do it. They performed an autopsy in a locked room without anybody present. And there's full documentation that the examiner knew that that was the order, and in court he testified that he knowingly violated the order because he was ordered to. He claims his supervisor ordered him to perform the autopsy and not allow anybody present. And he claims that he was told by his supervisor that the court order was changed, and he tried to get himself off. But at any rate, the judge ruled that they could add that to their case, that this is an additional charge against them, that they violated that. Yeah.
There's no way of holding them as a criminally the driver of the truck, of the cab.
Well, it'd be, since he's in the military, it technically would be a military trial. It's a war crime that would be tried in a military court's, more stringent than a civil court. I mean, hypothetically, there's less burden of proof, there's higher consequences, and so forth. So he could be tried, but essentially the investigation said he shouldn't be tried because he didn't do anything wrong, right? So they're not going to try him unless there's some other kind of pressure.
Is it known who he is and what he's been doing since then? Is it known?
It's not public who he is. The most recent documentary called Rachel, that should be out soon, and we'll have a screening of it here when it is out. It's at film festivals right now. It's actually debuting in Tel Aviv tonight. It interviews the actual driver and the tank commander at length, so you get to really hear their standpoint on it. And he feels a lot of remorse. In his interview, he says he felt, his face is blacked out so we can't see him, but he says that, he didn't mean to, that it was a really tragic accident, that he feels really bad about it, that he has, he thinks of his sister, and somebody else had died in his family, I don't remember who, but he said that he thinks about his person he lost, and is just, says that he feels really awful about it. So, I mean, that was kind of helpful, to hear that. I think it's genuine. I think that, that he definitely has some remorse about it. I think that there's no way he couldn't have done it on purpose, that he didn't know what he was doing, but in terms of his emotions around it, I think that's valid. The tank commander is even more candid about the fact that they have no regard for life for people in this area, that everybody is a target all the time, that they didn't care about us or our lives, that they were ordered to continue working regardless of the fact that we were there, and that that was just their attitude, and it's too bad that what happened, but this is what they do all the time. He said he's personally killed Palestinian civilians. He admits to killing Palestinian civilians, including children, on his watch. And so it's pretty amazing footage that when we bring that, you'll see. She's an Israeli, so she's able to really interview them in Hebrew and really get this story. And so it's being aired on. It's debuting in Tel Aviv tonight, and hopefully will appear on some kind of Israeli television. A month after Rachel was killed, about a week after the finding came out, it's about 3 weeks after that they released the finding that the soldier was exonerated. We were still there. We were still blocking bulldozers. We were still doing demonstrations and protecting news workers and so forth. And we had been joined by an activist named Tom Herndl. He's a 22-year-old British photographer and organizer. And we were in an area of Rafah on April 11th where Palestinian children were playing on this big mound of earth Israel had built up to block this road, and they were kind of using it as a little king of the mountain game or whatever. And we were there visiting some other Palestinians, and this Israeli sniper who'd been kind of shooting randomly in the area started targeting the children, shooting at the children. And so Tom moved very quickly to help get these kids out of that area. He moved a small boy out of the area, and then was going back to get 2 small girls when that sniper shot him in the head. Very directly, very intentionally. He was wearing orange fluorescent vest. We were very clearly who we were in the area, and he just targeted him and very intentionally shot him. I was standing right next to him at the time, and performed the first responder medic training that I'd been given on him a little bit, and Alice also was still there and helped with that, and got him to the hospital, and I thought he was totally dead. I mean, he had was just lifeless to me, and the Palestinian doctors were able to revive him and stabilize his condition, and he was helicoptered over to Gaza City and then eventually to Israel, and he held on for about 8 months in a coma, after which he died of pneumonia. And nobody hears about Tom or talks about Tom, and so it's really hard for me, because both of the incidents were so intense for me. And yet, like, you've done all this crazy stuff around Rachel, and then nobody really cared about the fact that Tom was killed, and it was so much more brutal and intentional and so forth. But eventually there was a trial. There was an initial investigation where they found, the Israeli government found themselves innocent again, and the British said that that wasn't adequate and that they needed more, and they sent British MPs to Israel to oversee a new investigation. And so they investigated, and the guy who shot Tom was actually a Palestinian Israeli, one of the Palestinians with Israeli citizenship. About 25% of Israelis are of Palestinian origin, but have citizenship in the sense that they can vote and get passports and come and go, but essentially, they're essentially second or third or fourth class citizens. So a lot of them join the military in order to try and get a little bit more rights. And of course, they're treated like crap in the military, and they have to be especially aggressive to like prove themselves or whatever. So. So this soldier was one of them who shot Tom, so he was eventually put on trial, at which they forced me to testify in because I was in Israel at the time of it, and he was convicted of manslaughter and of lying to Israeli investigators, and he was sentenced to 8 years. I don't know if he's still in prison or if he was. There was skepticism that he'd be out in like 1 or 2 years, so I don't know if he's out or not, or if people are following that, but. So there is a precedent for there being a way that these militaries are held accountable. So, customary to write a poem for someone who's died called a Nawaa. It's a Muslim tradition. And so upon returning to the U.S. after dealing with Tom's death and decided to come home and get therapy, I wrote this Nawaa for Rachel using a hip-hop style from the Black freedom tradition. It's called A Dove's Last Song. Never see her legacy die. We'll never see her legacy die. No, we'll never see her legacy die. We'll never see her legacy die. So let me tell you the story of a gory glory, one grand last stand in the land of holy. Rachel gave her life defending native rights, and we will never see her legacy die. When the planes hit the towers on 911, she knew that her personal war had begun. She sought to stop terror where it may be, and her eyes turned towards Washington, D.C. and to the army of Israel, the IDF, exhaling death with each breath till there's nothing left. They kill, catch, and cripple women, children, and men, whose only crime is that they're Palestinian. See, Rachel learned about Rafah, the forgotten town, where Sin's the only internationals around. The world's fourth strongest power hides our eyes from it all. Well, they create a prison state with guard towers and walls. It's the most impoverished place in all of Palestine. It's the site where the most folks fight and die. It's one of the poorest and most deadly cities in the world. No tourist trap for ordinary college girls. She thought her Western white privilege could do some good, as could other caring people in her neighborhood. So she sought to set up a relationship, an only sister city project in the Gaza Strip. So at the tip of January, she said her goodbyes and hit the skies, for the land of scary dies and cries. And when her plane hit the ground, the word got around that Raja, the blonde American, was in town. She found a fondness for the people. They cherished her so, a white flower in the desert, budding peace and hope. I'll never forget her dedication and commitment to solidarity and the spirit of resistance. It was this firm stance that opened the door to her final dance, opposing hatred and war. Her final dance that rocked me to my core. Her final dance that rocked me to my core. On the 16th of March, we marched to the field to lessen demolition with our bodies as shields. We took on Goliath, but instead of stones, we had fluorescent orange jackets and a megaphone. Our known passports projected in our pale white skin. We thought we were protected from racist violence, but Rachel was the first to prove that we were wrong, as she knelt in her pew to sing her final song, as she raised her voice and sang her final song, protecting the home of Dr. Samir, the family of whom she'd grown to hold dear. She couldn't let the dozer crush their hopes and dreams, so she pleaded with the soldier, "Go home, please, disobey your commander and just leave the people be. For if you remain here, you're gonna have to deal with me. I plead, my words you'll heed, and I won't concede till you recede. I won't leave till this family is freed, and I won't concede till you recede." And she didn't cede, but neither did he. As the dozer came closer, she climbed the mound and met the soldier at his shoulders for a final showdown. She pounded into his eyes. He continued to drive, pushed her down into the ground till she was drowned out of sight. We found the favorite of our band, wholly crushed by Holy Land, wholly crushed by Holy Land. And I can still see her hand sticking out of the sand. I still reach for her hand extending out of the sand. The man had seen her there pleading, but he didn't see a human being, a life to be valued with true compassion and feeling. She was concealing terrorists in his twisted mind frame, but somehow he missed he was doing the same. His duty was to drive a diesel death machine with the treads of terror and the blade of pain, made in USA, but with the taxes we pay. Our corporation's occupation makes the toys for their play. It was a caterpillar killer that killed her. They made the caterpillar killer. It was a caterpillar killer that killed her. We made the caterpillar that killed her. As her song was censored and her dance denied, we waved and raved, "She's underneath," we cried. But he threw it in reverse and cursed her again, dragging the blade over serrated skin. Torn inside and horrified, we rushed to her side and tried to keep her alive till more help could arrive. And the EMTs were an all too experienced crew, rushed her to the hospital, but what the hell could they do? Her spine was snapped and her chest was smashed, her skull was cracked and her lungs had collapsed, far surpassed what the understocked doctors could fix. They said, "Allah, Yarham Ha," at 6:20. Wheeled around a white sheet, shading her head. "It's over," my comrade Mohammed said. I couldn't believe it, and I cried to his chest. I still can't conceive her soul is really at rest. We had service ceremonies, demonstrations. We did hundreds of interviews and presentations. The world was aware of the vicious attack just as Bush and Blair began bombing Iraq, but no distraction. The world rose up and took action. And at anti-war demos we honor her memory, inspired by her fire, now forever burning in me. Yeah, Rachel's dedication made the nations fight war. More have come to Rafah than have ever before, and I, as some recruits, have gone through the roof, as have other pro-freedom and pro-peace groups. And we see troops of doves in a yearly Holy Street procession. Rachel Corrie Memorial Center for Children. Rachel's vision of a sister city's been realized. Olympia and Rafah will forever be tied. All her holy family will keep it alive, and we will never see her legacy die, no matter how hard they try. Yeah, they may have crushed her body and crushed her bones, but they'll never crush her spirit that lives on and on. Yeah, on and on, from dawn to dawn, a crescendoing, never-ending freedom song. Now every time I lock down or block town in the street, every time I write a media or theater piece, every time I build a puppet or deliver a speech, every time my mind's on Palestine and all the shaheed, every time a freedom fighter dies for a cause, or we ride with rules inside and don't abide by their laws, every time we push our limits and make cultural ties, every time we use our privilege to assist the denied, every time we take a stand for another man's strife, we honor Rachel Corrie and continue her life. Yet we will never see her legacy die. Her life is documented in verses and prose. We read the details in her emails to her folks and her bros, and from her journal we can learn all of her thoughts and ideas. We can study testimony of her family and peers, like we hear she was a healer who worked in mental health, an oldie girl in greener who loved to teach herself. She was an artist, writer, painter, a creator of beauty. We know she was a leader who heeded her duty, yeah, a maker of peace who didn't cease till the end. She was a daughter, a sister, a neighbor, and a friend. A daughter, a sister, a neighbor, and my friend. She was a martyr, a true Shahida. She had died for freedom, Corrie, for she had come to Rafah to stop the tanks that were built, bought, and brought by her brothers, the Yanks. And though they're stronger than ever, they won't be forever. Extend your hand to Rachel's and we'll stand up together, yeah. We'll never see her legacy die. 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 Cause true solidarity is such a rarity, and she shared it with me with such clarity. Graffiti, writing, and Rafah reads her glory. Rachel Corrie, an American citizen with Palestinian blood. 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 Thank you.
This is one of my favorite Jimi Hendrix songs, and recently I played it with my band actually this morning, and we dedicated it to Rachel Corrie. We played just the first verse because I think it resonates with the story. Well, she's walking through the clouds with a revolutionary smile that's running wild. Liberty and freedom and moonbeams, that's all she ever thinks about. Riding with the wind. When I'm sad, this fight comes to me with these 1,000 freedoms we all get for free. We gotta learn what we gotta fight for. We can't end up all like Rachel Corrie.
That I feel it's a privilege, and I'm so grateful to you for really devoting, the last years of your life and putting all of this time and effort and love and in an effort not to let her die or the Palestinian situation go under the rug, and I think it's a wonderful thing you've done, and it's very powerful, and your presentation is so wonderful, and it's I'm so happy that we came, and we're privileged, really privileged to participate in it.
I second that.
Well, thank you so much. This is my adopted family here. Mom and Daddy's Val and their two kids, my new brother and sister, Patty and Jeff here. And I couldn't do this kind of thing without this love and support that you all have shown me. And so it's really great that you're here and that I've been able to be meaningful for you as much as you have for me. So it's great. Bernice.
I want to start by saying I was incredibly moved by your whole performance. Performance is not the word even, because it's really something that came from you. It was extremely moving. I'm so glad I came here. Yet in the back of their mind there was something there. We don't know the name of an individual Palestinian woman that we should be doing something comparable with along with Rachel. It just felt like that was missing. But I don't want to take away from what you did, because I was very, very moved by it.
Yeah, that's a definitely excellent point. And
I know you made that point.
Yeah,
It's something that's missing.
I was also in Palestine with the ISM in Jenin after they bulldozed 450 homes, and I was just in Egypt as part of the Gaza Freedom March over New Year's, attempting to break the blockade, which we were not really successful at doing. And also a friend of Tristan's, ran with him in many places around the world. And it's amazing to think that, when is it going to stop, And I think the tragedy of us not knowing all the Palestinians and the daily assault that's going on. I mean, people like Rachel do give opportunities for other people to hook it in ways that others might not. And so I'm grateful for you to keep her legacy alive. And remembering Tom. And let's hope that we don't have to add Tristan to that list, but his life is forever changed. So thank you.
Thank you, Joe, for doing this. And there's a lot of things that I want to say, but I'm just grateful that you put yourself out there. Because I don't know how to say this quickly, but I grew up in a conservative Jewish home where we bought State of Israel bonds every year for the fucking synagogue, and it was just loads and loads of crap, just on and on. And I don't know how to connect to this, but also maintain where I came from and not like be super angry at all that. But the hardest thing for me to swallow is it's not a personal. This is not about you, this is not about her or me or anybody in here. This is about like a spirit that comes into people at different times. And this is like the last few years of my life have really been the first time when I've started to like feel that. And as an artist myself and just as a friend, I really appreciate all the work that you do because you really serve as a model for me. And I draw a lot of strength from you. And I aspire to use my own powers in a similar way to you.
Jews make up about 3-4% of the U.S. population, and my experience is that it's about 25% of the Palestinian rights movement are Jewish people. So it's overwhelmingly disproportionate to their numbers in the population that are speaking out very specifically on this issue because of their ties to that, as well as lots of Israelis that we marched alongside who not only organize in their own country against their government but come into Palestine and are beaten and arrested and shot at. One Israeli activist was shot in both legs by an Israeli soldier as they were dismantling part of the apartheid wall, and so forth. So it's really amazing to see the bridges built in this movement. But it is a struggle. It is very difficult, and it is very personal, but also very much bigger than us.
Speaking of interesting connections that opened this week, farm-related, Willie Nelson Peace Institute site featured this program on their website today, and over the Christmas holiday, they featured Mishal Al-Jouri's Bethlehem card. And Willie Nelson wrote the introduction to that on his website after he read what Mishal Al-Jouri had formulated as a piece of media to give out at Christmas. I received kind of unofficial communications that I can share with you to say that Willie does understand this is essentially a farm issue. The land on which the Palestinian people grow their food is being taken from them. And Willie stands for farmers no matter where you are. And so I believe that when people come together and do not allow the government to get between you and another human being that lives on this globe, we have the chance to change the equation. If we as human beings in the year 2010 refuse to allow our government to continue the paths that the Israel lobby has lobbied through DC on multiple levels, and I know everyone in this room is well educated to this. We all know what I'm talking about. It's now 2010. For the first time in my lifetime, regular Americans are getting it. Every one of you is a potential ambassador now. Every one of you can pick up the phone and call Senator Cornyn, call Senator Hutchinson, but more importantly, go ahead and call the White House. Just skip all of them together and call the White House. They have a public comment line, and you call, if you want to, every day. And email that phone number out to other people of heart and conscience and say, please call the White House and tell them that we do not approve of our U.S. policy. We know there's some forward progress, but it's not enough. And we want this equation changed now by this administration. Literally, it is possible with one stroke of the pen for our U.S. policy to change. And Mr. Obama, Mr. Hopium, did say to us, make me. Remember that. There's hope. There's hope when you and I together don't allow the government.
In memory, in our spirit also, I think one of our teachers, our founder, Raul Salinas, tomorrow would have been his 74th birthday,
Happy
March
birthday,
17th.
He's a youngster.
Yes.
To our elder, who, in one of my favorite photos, he went to San Antonio to speak at the Esperanza Peace and Justice Center. And there was some people there from Palestine, and they were talking about Palestine. And Raul spent many years speaking on behalf of American Indian Movement and Leonard Peltier, making those connections with the Palestinian movement as a land struggle, self-determination. And so what he did in an act of solidarity is he got his red bandana out, and someone gave him one of these scarves. What's it called?
Kafia.
The kafia. And what he did was he tied it together to show the solidarity between the Chicanos, Indians, and the Palestinian movement, seeing them as an indigenous movement. And so in that spirit and in that solidarity, I would like to bring and share Raul's spirit with Rachel Corrie's spirit, because when this incident, tragic incident, did happen, he was somewhere else, and he came home with one of these posters. And he was teaching at St. Edward's University down the street, and we spoke about that at St. Ed's. And also when he arrived from Seattle, he started teaching at UT. And while he was teaching at UT, he worked with the Palestinian solidarity group who were working on campus, who to this day, some of the students who are now elders, wherever we went, they would recognize him and really thank him for giving the support in the 80s when really no one was giving the students the support at that time. So I like to honor the struggle for indigenous people in this hemisphere and across the Atlantic. And it's one of his last poems he wrote. It's actually one of his anti-war poems written in Minneapolis, Minnesota, September 2006. And it's called Loud and Proud. In loud voices we must sing. Cantaremos porque silence means consent. Cantaremos porque silence equals death. If I am free to express my ways, then what I have to say to this here nation state is, don't spew me with hate. Don't play that un-American card with me, partner, because continentally speaking, I am what I am. No need for nationalistic, jingoistic, patriotic pap. Remember World War II? We're gonna have to slap their dirty little Jap, and Uncle Sam's the guy who can do it. In proud voices, entonces, let me exercise my rights, Aboriginal and otherwise, as we grieve one more time for those who gave up the spirit on 9/11, now gone to their heaven. 30 years we've been grieving, weaving our tears into spears of struggle. Feel las voces of the poets in the wind. Listen to the singing of artistas on communal walls. See la música splash rainbows on our souls. Loud and proud, I sing my ritmos and rhymes in these times of patriotismo gone astray. Disgusting display busting out all over town, including the brown. Flying of the flags used to disguise body bags that carried Medal of Honor winners back to hick towns of coffee serving refusals and cemetery of heroes' burial denials. In proud voices we will sing. So with all due respect to my mom and her need to fly a flag for her man who fought in some other war, wrap me not in waving rags that gag the wailing of the masses in Actial. Irlandeses, both Protestants and Catholics, their paths plowed under, Lebanon plundered, as the colony crumbles, Palestine rumbles, intifada. In loud voices we shall sing, though the empire is in shambles. Cantaremos a the niños mutilados en Iraq, Atenco en Kabul, Rolando en Vieques, Yankee duro contaminación. La liberación de los pueblos we must sing. Loud and proud, cantaremos, lift our voice, that one collected and united voice must not be stilled. Strong-willed seguiremos, cantaremos, we must sing, we will sing, bringing to our gente decente that other realidad. Thank you.
Truly, this song is about everything. It's called Life Brings Life. person dies, a child is born. The sun goes down, comes back in the morn, so you can mourn the loss of the form, but a new story's written on the page that was torn. 'Cause life brings life, nothing really dies, it only flies beside ancestors in the skies of rematerialize, only slightly disguised as the flames fly high. My phoenix will rise, seeds germinating like souls reincarnating. It's the tick-tock cycle of life circulating. Newton stated matter's never destroyed nor created, demonstrated in my garden where my dinner is plated. Food ain't from McDonald's or the grocery store, that's death that they're selling and you're paying for. Yeah, it's a war on your body and the planet's sore. Why eat ingredients you never heard of before? We don't need no chemicals, and we got carbon and nitrogen and oxygen and any combination with hydrogen. The sun shines 5-year-old light, and it's lighting it. Power from the stars, moon pressure applied to it, and gravity holds us while we spin, and the atmosphere works to keep us in. So tell me, where would it go when life seems to end? It ping-pongs back and begins again. Yeah, new plants grow from the life of the old. The compost, it's the energy decomposed. It all flows in the current with the river of souls. Skin and bones come back as broccoli and roses, and the beats of old make the songs of today. It comes around on the records we play. The DJ of nature, she won't let it drop. A new record started for the elder is stopped. 'Cause life brings life, nothing really dies, it only flies beside ancestors in the skies rematerialize, only slightly disguised as the flames fly high. My phoenix will rise. Life brings life, come on, sing it with me. Life brings life, come on, sing it. Life brings life, nothing really dies. I'm a gardener and a real life sustainer. I'm a nurturer and a real educator. I'm a revolutionary fighting for real change, to rearrange the power, make a painting from stains. They got us thinking that pain and death is the norm, fighting over umbrellas in a man-made storm. But I don't conform, I practice real intimacy. I see children filled with tendencies of empathy. So let's build the struggle of sisters and brothers, and as the empire puzzle fumbles, tumbles, and crumbles, we can pick up the pieces and slowly reassemble, remake the world in the image of each other. Live by the sword and die by the sword, but live by love, and love will be your reward. You can't afford to waste a moment, your time is short, so choose life and you'll get it back tenfold. Martin foretold the universe bends towards justice. I believe it because I've seen it and I've learned to trust this. So bust this, people, come on, raise your hands, take a stand, and we'll reclaim and remake the land. 'Cause life brings life, nothing really dies, it only flies beside ancestors in the skies of rematerialize, only slightly disguised as the flames fly high. My phoenix will rise. Life brings life, come on, sing it now. Life brings life, come on, sing it. Life brings life, nothing really dies. This goes out to my eighth bodhisattva of birth. This goes out to my mother who loved me last and first, and to my father and every teacher I ever had, passing down me the knowledge now I put in your hands. Bataki Ausin, we all are relations, all colors blend with others. It's just pigmentation, north, south, east, west to the 4 directions. Earth, fire, wind, water, circle of protection. We're all interconnected, our lifelines intersected. The future is projected on windows of the present and reflected. It's the ripple effect. You can detect it, every action a reaction greater than you'd expect it. With my feet on the ground, I feel my roots go down to the center of the earth where it wraps around. With my hands up high, I can touch the sky. Like a rocket or a comet into space I fly. With this love in my heart, I feel every spirit like ringing a bell, and every ear can hear it. When I look into your eyes, I see deep in your soul, and what I see is perfect, complete, and whole. Life brings life, nothing really dies, it only flies beside ancestors in the skies rematerialize, only slightly disguised as the flames fly high. My phoenix will rise. Life brings life, come on, sing it. Life brings life, come on, sing it. Life brings life. 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 Life brings Life brings life brings life. A person dies, a child is born. The sun goes down, comes back in the morn. So you can mourn the loss of the form, but a new story's written on the page that was torn.
Oh.